Hi, everyone. My name is BJ, and I'm a genealogist and librarian here in Maine. And I'm going to talk about online trees this week as part of how you record and share your data. First, I'd like to thank the people who have signed up for my Patreon. A couple of you are here tonight, and I appreciate it more than you can imagine. Um, this whole being unemployed and trying to make a living doing genealogy stuff is a change from being a librarian. So I really appreciate that. Um, but let's get into the program. And I am not one who's going to say this is the way you should do your inline tree, um, because everyone has different needs, has different ideas of what they're willing to do, and so on. But I want to talk about them so you can go into the with your eyes open about which type you do. So let me share my screen. And what I want to talk about first is just the two basic models you're likely to see online. And as I said, they have advantages and drawbacks. And those of you who've been around a while will get them already, but I figure it's worth talking it through. So the two basic models of online trees are where you have your own tree. You are the only one who can change it unless you invite somebody. And for example, with Ancestry, you can invite people to view it, but not change it. Or you can invite people to be a co-editor, a contributor, which, if you trust somebody, that's great. My Heritage and Find My Past also do the individual tree model. Um, and at all of these, you get more features, more flexibility if you're a paying customer than if you're a free user. The other model is collaborative trees. And this is what Family Search, WikiTree, and Genie do. And the idea on these is everybody works together on one tree. And so ideally, every person in the tree has one entry, meaning that if you and several cousins are working on your like 8 times great grandparents, there's only one entry for those great grandparents instead of each of you having your own tree. And you don't fully control the information. Anyone can change it. And a lot of people every week on both the Reddit genealogy subreddit and at various Facebook groups I'm in, somebody comes in and they don't understand that it's a collaborative tree and they fuss that somebody's changed something. And so you need to know that's a possibility. Now, with Family Search and WikiTree, I should not really use Genie. Um, one time I ventured into it, I didn't like it, and I just have not had a need to use it because, in my opinion, it's from what little I've seen, it's the least good of the three big collaborative trees. Um, you can get for Family Search's World Tree and for WikiTree, you can get alerts when things are changed. So you can go in and see what people have added. Um, Let's run the trees. Oh yeah, Jewish Gen has a world tree, but it's a little different. They've got a slightly different model. Um, but there's an attempt to balance these two. Again, it's been a while since I've used it. Um, so anyway, I have a short PowerPoint where I'm gonna walk you through some of the good and bad things, and then we'll flip to the websites and take a look so that you guys can see how this works. So let's take a look. So these are snippets from Ancestry. And those of you who've been around the last few couple weeks ago saw me talk about the whole Anne Holyoke Putnam or Anne Lynn Putnam and why that's a problem. That a woman born in 1645 in Massachusetts would not have a middle name and certainly would not have the middle name of Lynn. But you'll notice that there are over 10,000 trees with this woman in them of varying levels of quality. Mm, I would expect that I probably would not find much new in any of these if they've put Anne Lynn in. Yes, it's judgmental on my part, but it's a way of me, because there are so many of these, it's a way for me to say, yeah, I don't want to look through 10,000 trees that have a middle name that was not possible. And even if it says there are 12 records and 31 sources for this, I'm going to be really skeptical about anything they put up because of this. Yeah, so it's judgmental. I admit that. But this is the downside of the individual trees. It is possible one of these 10,570 some trees has a tidbit that is important, that is in a Bible that was handed down or a journal or some such thing. But it would be really hard to find it in these almost 11,000 trees. Does that make sense to everybody? How that's now, I went and looked for Ann Putnam without the Lynn, and there were 200 trees. I might spend some time working through those. But this is the downside of the individual tree model, is that if and once you get back before about the American Revolution here in New England, you're going to get a lot of people who have 1,000 plus trees that they're in, just because that's the number of descendants. I mean, I've seen estimates that John Alden and Priscilla Mullins of the Mayflower have somewhere between 2 and 4 million descendants now. And it doesn't have to be that big a percentage of people who have put a tree up that you get to thousands of trees. Um, and one of the things, and little less true from what I've heard from friends who do more Southern, like Virginia genealogy and for Quebec genealogy, but particularly for the early New England settlers, you get a lot of people who do a lot of wishful thinking about Mayflower passengers or about ties back to English nobility and royalty. And we're going to see one of those in a bit. Um, and so you get people trying to claim somebody. Um, when I was just starting out, I was a baby genealogist. The year this happened started with a 19, not a 20, if that tells you how long ago this was. Um, the ancestral file that was part of the what is now Family Search, that was LDS Mormon church members keeping track of ancestors for doing their religious stuff, had two different sets of grandparents for Joseph Smith, the founder of the religion. Maybe it was three. It was more than one. And I was admitted to being a little surprised by this because I knew that it was settled who his Smith grandparents were. It's back into colonial New England. Um, and what had happened was there was no protection on the file, and anyone who had a Smith in northern Essex County, Massachusetts, in their ancestry, who was a member of the LDS Church, wanted to have Joseph Smith as a second or third cousin multiple times removed. And it was interesting because I was volunteering, even though I wasn't LDS, at the Family History Center at the church, the Mormon church closest to where I lived. And I said something about this as I was getting to be a little better and more discerning about um, doing genealogy. I said something to the um, woman who was the Family History Center director, and she said, I've got a brother who's pretty high up out in the Family Search Library and the Family History Library in Salt Lake City. And about 3 or 4 months later, they had actually managed to get the right grandparents or great grandparents, and it was protected. Um, so that was the predecessor to the World Tree at Family Search now. Which I said to her, it doesn't look good if you can't get Joseph Smith's grandparents right. Um, I don't know if I was the one who prompted that, but somebody did. Um, but the One World Tree avoids this situation where you literally have too much to sort through. So let's take a look here. The next, and you guys have seen this one as well. We have my several great grandparents, Ithamar Wilkins. Had no T. You, you've seen me talk about that. It's a mistranscription from the 1840s that people mushed together because, well, was he Ithamar or was he Thomas? Well, we'll just make him Ithamar Thomas. And this is not the right birth date. This is, and it's a being error. But way too many people starting out are going to pull this one, not this one. And that's why you need to be cautious. But again, what if one of these trees, I can look through the 337 of them. What if one of them has a diary that solves my problem about who Lois is because her name's not in the marriage record? I'm not going to see that because with all of these trees that have two major issues, I'm not necessarily going to sift through all of them. So that's the downside of the individual trees. The upside is when you have correct information and other people have stuff like this, they can't go in and change the entry like you can on a world tree. Here's one of my introductions to don't trust everything. So there's a man named Richard Sears, married to a Dorothy, shows up in Plymouth Colony in the 1630s. And at the time, I thought I was descended from him 3 ways. It turns out one of them doesn't fit in. You guys have heard my whole John T. Sears issue, who I'm pretty sure was actually Portuguese and not um, a descendant of this Richard Sayers. Now, again, you see we've got just shy of 23,000 trees. Now, what's interesting here, you get a lot of people put this type of thing in the middle of the name, which I admit for traditionalist me bothers me, but that's me. We've got we've got father, mother. Looks pretty odd. I mean, there's a 40-year difference between, well, maybe that's okay. But you also have, you know, the father being what, 62 when the son is born. Not impossible. Um, but then you get, if we go look into, we click through on this person here, Nivet Sears, never existed as far as anyone can tell. There is not a contemporary record of him, period. He's not in his father's will, all sorts of other things. So what turns out happened, oh, and you look here, it's interesting, like you have the half sister is John Say, you know, other things like that, that you have the half sister born 1561 in Amsterdam, half brother born about 1561 in Plymouth in England, and then you also have a half sister John born in Suffolk, and then another half brother born in Devon. Would any of you take information from this tree without further proof? Just looking at this, I don't care how many things are here in the sources column. This would make me say, buddy, in the 1560s, you are not getting three kids born to the same couple in two different countries, and then two um, counties within one of the two countries. Plus, then you have a half brother born a year before that, and a half brother born a year after that. You know, that's just, again, they may have the parish registers for this, but they're not all the same family. So yeah, so let's take a look. Well, as I said, Nivet, as far as I can tell, with having done research with a bunch of other people, he was invented by a genealogist, supposed genealogist in the 19th century, who was essentially created pedigrees for newly well-to-do Americans that tied back to British landed gentry, nobility, royalty. And so, and this was Nivet, not Kinvet. And again, going back to when you had dates starting with 19s, several of us, one of the big things in genealogy at that point was email lists, and some by county, some by surname, and every few months we'd get what some of the other people in the list and I started calling Nivet eruptions, where somebody just discovered that they were descended from Nivet Sears or from Richard and Dorothy and Ted Nivet in the um so yeah. So fortunately, this is from WikiTree. And one of the nice things about WikiTree is they did some early stuff where it was bad, but in the last 3 to 5 years, there's been a real attempt to be sourced, to be careful with research. And one of the nice things I like is when you have an issue, you can put this disputed thing right at the top. And so you'll notice father unknown, mother unknown, and only three children, not the however many, 6 or 7 there were with the tree on ancestry. The other thing they do is they have projects where project can protect people who are interested in the Puritan Great Migration. They're protected. You have to basically go through these people to change them at this point. Um, and so you can see who the people who can change this. But this means that for these people where there are issues where having this person having Richard Sears be the person that supposed genealogist in the 1800s created, gets you a royal connection or a Mayflower connection. People want that. And they want that in some cases more than they want defensible research. So this is one reason when I do things at a World Tree, it's mostly at WikiTree. I do some at Family Search, but I'm mostly hanging out at WikiTree these days. So anyhow, you'll see here, this is also from WikiTree, under the research notes, it um, has the outline of what the problem is, where it was, and this is the thing I like. You can do this to some extent at Family Search, and I'll show you that, but you have to click through a couple times to get to it. Whereas this is right on the page for the person at WikiTree. Does that make sense why I like this? That it's right in front of you. You don't have to click through to something to another page. Um, and notice here, this is going over to Family Search. Here we have Richard. We get the right wife on this one. And this is interesting, we not only have Nivet, we have a Neva, who I'd never seen before. And when I went to pull this today, I'm like, that's interesting. Um, Thomas, I don't think he is part of the family. I think it's just Paul, Silas, and Deborah. But notice again, you've got two Silases, and somebody's got it probably should be one person. So let's look again. So this is going to so what I did is I clicked through this is the search result at Family Search for the tree. As you can see, I'm searching in the family tree. That's what's highlighted. Important research has been done on this person. Please read these alert notes before making changes. But you have to click through. Oh, so sorry, I showed that again. And when you click through, this is what you get. It shows the three children. To get anything more, you have to click down here on Show All, which gets you all of this. But you've had to click through twice to get this information that Nivet was made up. And yes, I am quite tempted that I may well, after we are done here, go in and fix this, because this is driving me nuts to see. As I'm sure you can imagine, you know, this is, and I'm sure what will happen is if I go in and take Nivet out of the family, somebody will go in and put him back in, because that's the downside of these. The upside is if we go back here to this, there's only everyone's worked on this profile. I don't have to sort through those 10 or 23,000 profiles to see if somebody has found something new. Does it make sense to everybody? That this is a strength of this model. So let's go back to where we were. So that's the end of the PowerPoint. But let's go and look at a couple of these live, just so you can see what they look like. So this is Ann Putnam that I showed you before. And you can see here, there is one entry for her. This is her aunt, and this is, I think, a cousin. And if we click through to the person, you get the list, you get these. You'll notice that she is not Ann Lynn Putnam here, which I'm very thankful for. Um, you do get people trying to have the right location for the time period. I'm not sure, this doesn't necessarily need to be there. You can see who made changes. You get this with who she married and the children. Um, and we can click through here to these. Here's the collaborate. Um, this is a good note to have that she's not the one that was the younger Ann Putnam, who was one of the girls who helped start the Salem witch trials. Because trust me, there were enough Ann Putnams running around that you need to distinguish them even that early. You get a place to put assorted things. So in this case, you can see people have actually put scans of the Putnam genealogy and of various um, vital records books. And I've seen things here where people have actually typed something out, like if they remember a great grandmother, um, and so on. And you get the sources. Um, and one nice thing about this is you can click here, um, and it shows you, you can click through to this. So that's a very handy, and it's not, this is the actual scanned image. It's not a scan printed out that somebody has uploaded. And so, we can go through all of these, and you see here, um, and again, you can quickly look at this and go, yeah, that I'm pretty sure that that is the 1840s being of that. So this is nice. They are beginning to be a bit better about this. You don't have quite the peer pressure yet, from what I've seen at Family Search, that you do at WikiTree for sourcing things. But let's go take a look at WikiTree. And so I search, you can, and when you search here, you get relevance is what comes up first. I often then end up, because I don't want to figure out where they put the input in them I'm looking for, I often flip this to birth date, especially for earlier people, because I can go through here and like, yep, there she is. Now, one of the interesting things, um, and one of the reasons I don't like Genie is, at least at one point, they were not doing this. WikiTree is doing, this is what's called the current last name, which is what it sounds like, and it's what the name somebody died with if they're deceased. Um, and so, but that's what it does have, the advantage that when you have something like Ann Putnam, where there are so many of them, it's easier to pick out of this list that I want this one and not this one. Um, and again, you see here you have Susanna's and Ann's and Ann Pittman's. So um, we've made my peace with doing this the non-traditional way. Um, and one of the things that's interesting here, if we can go to it, where is it? Um, where is it? Yeah, they have forums here that people can post in. Um, so you can go in here and you will see there was one recently about, you know, how to handle last names for Portuguese and Spanish speaking Jews in fifth, like 17th century Holland, Amsterdam. And so you can get people, um, people talking about to do this and be consistent. So that's a helpful thing. But you also see that you get, you know, um, there are people who are call themselves data doctors. They go in and fix things. Um, or you get other questions. Um, that people ask, transcription help and so on. Um, and as I said, the setup on this is nice because you get background and all of this on the right on that same page. You don't have to go deeper to find it, um, which I really like. So will this let me, no, let me go into, it literally just changed um, their setup. So let me go here and show, so here's my family tree. And let's say I wanted to add something here. This is my grandmother. Um, I can click here, and here's where you edit. You can say whether you're certain or uncertain about something, um, which is nice. You can do before or after this date. It will give you place name suggestions. Um, I can say I'm confident that that was her mother and her father. I have cases where it's non-biological. Um, if I know that there is one more child. I have an aunt who is still alive, so I have not put her here. But if that weren't the case, I could say no more children. Um, it gives and then when you go to save the changes, you have to say what you're doing. And so I just did I'm going to call those minor corrections and go with that. But if we go over to my grandfather, we can click here to get his tree. And we'll go to Peter and notice because he's adopted with his birth parents, what see when you go further down is that there are multiple sets of parents. And so if I go in to edit this, you'll see here, um, oh, this is the one where I did it. Yeah, I put that in. Um, and so you can do that. Um, and again, it's very easy to do the citations because if we go into the edit person, um, if I wanted to add a citation, let's see here, all I have to do is click this and then put the reference in there. And I'm not going to save the changes on this. It would come up in this list here as number 4. So this one works. Um, and we've looked at Richard Sears. So that's sort of let's actually do one more here. Um, let's go to search public member trees. And we're going to go to we'll put this in. And you'll see this is my great great grandfather. Um, he is in 49 trees, including this one that is someone who's a DNA match of mine, but there is no proof of any of this. The only indication I have of where he came from, his parents, on his death record, his daughter said his father's name was Bernard McGee and didn't give a mother's name. Well, his daughter, Margaret, had been put into foster care at 12 and had limited connection with him after that. And I'm not sure that's right. But if we go in here and hit view all, like this is a cousin of mine that I've worked with. And you can see for most of these, you can see how it's going that you get, and then so here's someone, it's William Terrence, here it's Terrence Bernard. Um, and again, I'm not sure it's, I've gone through most of these because I'm frustrated enough about, um, I think this is actually my tree. Is it? Yes, this is mine. Um, which is not as well sourced as it should be. It is in my computer at program. Um, so as you can see, there's a wide range of what you get. And then this is also mine, if I remember correct. Because I am working at trying to figure out. And so, if I go in here to trees, um, I've got a bunch of these that are other people. Um, but you can see I am working at trying to figure this out. It's not going well. Um, but this is the nice thing. Nobody can go in and edit this. And some of these I have. Um, or let's go down to create and manage trees. Mm, So, for example, I can invite family, like with this one, I have invited 4 people to see what I'm working on. Um, this is an interesting case. There's this whole cluster of Martinez is that in my DNA results with my very Scottish grandmother. And so I have no clue how they connect. So if you go into like on tree settings, you can create these just so you can see. Um, I can change here, I can change the privacy settings. So right now, you would not be able to see this. And I'm going to change it. It won't even be found in searches. Before I did this, it would show in a search, but it would say you have to contact me to see it. So you can tinker with that. With the invitations, you can invite people um, to these 4 or 3 types of things. And you can do it by email or display name. Um, and so if you are working with a cousin and you want to have a speculative tree about your theories, you can set it to private so people can't see it, and you don't get this sort of thing with, Ann Lynn Putnam propagating through, 7,000 trees. Um, you and a couple cousins can work on the same tree. So they do have that flexibility, which I think is a nice balance that you can do that. Um, you know, isn't let, you know, on some of these, I have left the tree searchable, but not viewable so that distant cousin could find me, but then I'd have to invite them to view it. Does that make sense to everybody? Why I do it that way? Okay. So s- doing this gets around some of the, what if you want to work with a cousin on one of these? So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, turn my video back on. I hope that was a good overview of the two types of online trees and sort of the benefits and drawbacks of each one. Any questions at this point? No questions. Okay.